You know, I'm under Fritz here, giving it a good, thorough inspection. Right today, I'm focusing on the transmission. I'm not going to look right into the camera because I think this LED headlamp will probably blind you. I'm really impressed with the new technology on these headlamps. In fact, anytime I'm working under the car like this, I grab the headlamp. So what I'm looking at here is driveline flex disc, looking for cracks, seeing how flexible it is. Look at this rear mount. The transmission, by the way, looks really clean. I'm not seeing any leaks in the transmission. Doesn't look like I've got any rear main seal leaks coming out of the engine. That's real impressive. I am going to get my vacuum hand pump tester and check the vacuum modulator, but right away I'm noticing the typical problem on these. Listen, you know what that is? That's right. It's got a shift bushing up here on the transmission lever that's just shot. And you don't have that really special tool to put this in, so it's only going to take a few minutes to fix this. There's another thing I always check when I'm checking the shift bushings. And this is kind of often overlooked, but you want to check this lever that's coming out of the shifter located up in the car in the center console. The bushings can go bad in this shifter. And if that goes bad, that can also affect your shifting. So just grab a hold of this arm. There should only be just a minor amount of play. If you grab a hold of that arm and you can push it up and down, then the bushings have broken inside the shifter mechanism, and the best repair for that is to go find a good used unit and install the whole thing. It's not easy to repair one of these units. So this bushing doesn't look too bad, but I'm going to replace it anyway. I got to show you something. On that front clip, the clip was so tight up against the transmission casing that I would not have been able to remove this clip on that front rod without this special tool here. The other thing I recommend you do when you're replacing these bushings, here you can see the front bushing was just broken in half. But I recommend you clean these shafts, get them real clean, because sometimes they've got rust and corrosion on them, which just helps to accelerate the wear on the new bushing. Now, we include some special lubricant in the kits, and we recommend you install these bushings with the special lubricant. Also put a little bit here on the end of the shaft. That'll keep this from rusting. You can see the rust that's already formed on this shift rod. So if you want to do some detailing, you go ahead and clean that and paint it. As part of my transmission inspection, I'm going to test this vacuum modulator. This controls the smoothness and timing of the shifts of the transmission. And if it's not working properly, you could get a jerky or slipping type of shift going on with your transmission. Not only just this unit could be bad, but you could have something wrong with the vacuum coming from the engine to this unit. So the first thing you want to check is this hose. Make sure the hose is on tight. See, I can't even hardly unplug this hose. That's a good sign though. It's on there really tight, so I don't have to worry about the rubber hose. But that's what you want to inspect. If it's at all loose, change this rubber hose. So to test this modulator, I'll use my vacuum hand pump tester and plug it in. And then I'm going to pump it up and see if it holds vacuum. Look at that. It's holding vacuum steady on the tester. So that's pretty good. I'm really happy about that because this is a red modulator. And being a European spec unit, it's very hard to find these. So I'm going to plug this in. And at least at this point, I don't have to worry about this. Let me show you what else I check when I'm up on this side of the transmission. The shift lever right here is something you want to take a good look at. Make sure it's not loose on the shaft going into the transmission. I just get a 10mm wrench and I'm going to check the torque on this bolt, and it's tight. So these will loosen up, and if they do, you'll get all kinds of funny shifting characteristics, including not going into park. I don't find it's a problem very often, but you want to make sure that's tight. There's one other item on my transmission inspection checklist, and this is often overlooked, and that's these rubber hoses, which are part of the transmission oil cooler system. You know, fluid from the transmission goes up through these hard lines here and goes through these rubber hoses into the bottom part of the radiator where it's cooled. Well, these hardly ever get changed. I don't think I've ever seen new ones on a 25-year-old Mercedes. But I would recommend if your Benz is over 20 years old and you have no record that these were replaced, just change them. I've seen them rot internally. I've also seen them weep fluid from the inside out. So this is a really good preventative measure, and they're not expensive. I'm going to go ahead and order these. I'm going to replace them the same time I do my transmission service, which means changing the fluid in the filter and draining the torque converter. Installing the bushing here on the shifter arm was pretty easy because I had straight access. You can see I can get the tool straight up in there and squeeze that bushing into place. But let me tell you, the front one was something else. I mean, I couldn't get on it straight, so I had to twist and turn and fight that thing, and finally had to pry the pliers up against the transmission bell housing to get straight enough on there to pop that thing in. But it went in. I don't know how I would have gotten that front bushing in without this special tool. So now I've painted the rod, I've cleaned it up, I've polished that shaft a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of synthetic grease on the shaft. Now I want to warn you here, do not use petroleum-based grease on these bushings. They'll actually rot them out over time. So I've pushed that in now, and now I've got to install the clip. On this little clip tool we send out with our pliers, don't be afraid to bend this. It comes straight, but you could bend it at any angle. I had to bend this to get the clip on that front one, but I'm going to have a pretty straight shot here. And remember, the tool comes with complete instructions. It comes with the clip tool, and we even put a little synthetic grease in there with the bushing, so you'll have that handy when you go to install them. So I've got the clip tool and the clip ready to go on. I'm going to slide that in there. I got to hold that back. I'm trying to do this so you don't lose the picture. Okay, there we go. You see, without this tool, you wouldn't be able to spread that clip enough to get that on. Now I can take the tool out, make sure it's totally seated, and push back on it to make sure it won't come out. Okay, we have new shift bushings installed, and that didn't take long with these tools. One thing I want to warn you about, if you remember earlier in the video, the bushing in this rear arm didn't look that bad. You know, you say, oh, that looks okay. But look at the condition of it when I took it out. You know, it just broke apart when I shoved it out, so it was ready to go. As I say, if you have one of these older Mercedes that's over 20 years old, just change these shift bushings.